Let's see what we can learn about Matt Kajewski today. Material for days.
Been rocking out to LCD Sound System all morning. You ever heard of them?
Yeah, I have.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. That show at the Garden, they're fantastic.
Been going down like a 9-inch nails hole.
Ooh, 9-inch nails. Huh?
Yeah. Kind of just mixing it back up.
Were you a
It's so
Deftones
crazy.
guy? Did you listen to Deftones back in the day too?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't.
But you know them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're my age, right? So
I'm literally your age.
yeah. I'm saying we have a lot of
Pretty
probably same music that we listen to.
We do. We do. We grew up in the Blink 182
Yeah, I love
Green Day era. It was beautiful.
I'd run the gauntlet. Sublime. I still like
Yeah.
Dave Matthews Band. I mean,
Dude, Dave, got to see Dave a couple times in Omaha. Those were good days.
I love this concert. I just never remembered any of them.
Mm-hmm. Why is that, Lofty?
You can't go to Dave Matthews concert. I ended up rolling down one of the grass hills at yeah, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Woke up at the bottom.
Oh my God.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NFL ownership show, strategy show, I should say, ownership edition on a beautiful Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. I'm Dave Lochran at Lofty_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D for those of you podcast listeners. Joined as always, probably only going to do this a couple more times. So soak it in, fellas and ladies. Eric Lindquist at Eric Lindquist and Matt Gajewski at Matt_Gajewski. That's JAGAJEWSKI. What's up, Matt?
Not too much, man. Excited for these games. You were talking before the show how we have all these good quarterbacks on the slate. So I'm expecting a really good batch of football games. Hopefully a lot of them are a little closer contested than what we saw to close out wild card weekend. But we're basically just dealing with the best of the best at this point.
Yeah, we are. Quarterbacks, man, absolutely loaded. A lot of these positions have a lot to get to. Gage says, I'm supposed to be doing my homework, but I'm here instead. My professor's definitely bitching. Well, tell him you have a valid excuse. We're happy to have you here. Eric, we support all type of class cutting, work skipping, school skipping when it comes to watching the strategy show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just tell them that you're going to be a millionaire come Sunday. So it'll be just fine. Once you let them know that, they'll be really nice to you. It'll all be set. They'll be like, what is this DraftKings thing that you guys are talking about? They'll be curious. You'll be able to kind of talk and finagle your way out of it. Just make sure that you talk about all the genius stuff that Matt Kajewski talks about on the daily.
You know what's going to happen? They're going to tell him about it. Professor's not going to show up to school the next day.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. They're going to be Awesemo subs. I mean, that's how it works. It's quick.
I'm all about it.
It's a quick transfer.
When I was an undergrad, I was toying around with the idea of going to law school, basically on my parents' recommendation. So I was in this class to prepare for the LSAT. And instead of going to it, I used to just go to Starbucks and watch Oklahoma tape. And
this is your calling.
And like old Middle Tennessee games from like 2013 to like get a read on some prospect who is now a senior and probably like a 7th round pick. And lo and behold, I did not end up as a lawyer.
No, I can't imagine how you did it, honestly. But that's great. You're not like, yeah, I was watching NFL, not even NFL, just oddly. Oh, would you say Oklahoma and who else?
I used to watch a lot of Oklahoma because they had like Baker and Joe Mixon and all these Marquise Brown. But I would also watch like some of these really scrubby teams like Middle Tennessee State. They played Alabama one year and they had the 7th round pick that like picked off. I can't even remember who the quarterback was. I don't know. My parents still don't know about that.
That's
why they
didn't
do
work out.
Yeah, now they do because they both quit their jobs to watch the NFL strategy show as well. All right, let's dive into it. We got a lot to talk about. Happy to have you guys here as always. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet and subscribe to the channel 71,300. Not bad. Doing quite well around this way. Thanks to you guys. But if you haven't done so yet, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Become part of the family around this way. And if you want to join and get those badges, you see a bunch of those in chat right now. The custom emojis, the free super chats each month, and always priorities on your questions and comments, along with our Discord members. Hit that join down below. Eric, we're gonna have we're getting it set up now to where we're gonna be able to put the comments and questions up on the screen, which is gonna be a real nice little addition to these shows.
What a time to be alive. I get to do less work. I'm all about it.
I mean, listen, does anybody do it as well as we do? I'm not. This isn't boastful, but we got producer cam now. We're about to have the pop-up. I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah. I mean, what more do you want, people? What more do you want?
They always want something more.
They do. That's kind of part of it. I mean, we have to innovate because you guys are just like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Yeah, we damn sure can.
It's never enough, but we're here anyway. Matt, one thing that I got wildly wrong, so did you, so we can commiserate on this together. At no point did I see Cam Akers just being injected straight into the offense as the lead back and out touching Sony Michel, out snapping Sony Michel after being 5.5 months removed from an Achilles tear and having 5 carries on the entire season going into a huge wild card game against the Cardinals. Craziness.
Yeah, that's the thing. Their previous game was huge for them too, and Cam Akers was very much on a snap count. So my anticipation was, what could possibly change? 1 extra week removed, and apparently a lot. So that was an L. I think that was in the range of outcomes, but definitely like a standard deviation away from what we expected. But if you predicted that correctly, hopefully you made some money on it.
Yeah, hopefully. How'd you do on Monday, Eric?
I did okay. I mean, Matt Savoca put us on Cam Akers, so that was helpful.
What's that?
I didn't listen to him.
Yeah, well, you should listen more, Matt Kajewski.
What was his
smart
reasoning?
As you are? Yeah, Matt Savoca, he just basically said, I think that you have to be willing to embrace some risk on showdown slates. And Cam Akers, when healthy, is the most explosive back in the backfield for the Rams. We saw him, progress into the lead back role towards the end of the season last year. 6 months ago, Achilles tear, but they're not going to throw him out there unless he's good to go. They're not going to play him as a shell of himself with an Achilles injury. And so I thought that reasoning pretty solid. Got on a sizable amount of him, had a profitable day, came close to the nuts, needed more Rams defense.
Okay. But the thing is, truthfully, it wasn't even about getting on to Akers. He wasn't even that good and he wasn't that cheap. It was about getting away from Sony.
Yeah, well, it was about getting onto any kind of 5-1 lineup you could with Rams.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's
and finding the build that kind of got you in that direction. So if you could get anybody with positive, Odell, Stafford, obviously Cooper Kupp ended up getting there towards the end as well, all 80-90% of the field, but like legitimately Cam Akers, I think it's just exciting to see a dude put up almost 100 yards 6 months ago. Guy tore his Achilles 6 months.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything
less than
like
6 months ago.
Yeah. Less than 6 months. It's just insanity. So, I will say that, when we think about these injuries and, last week I was on a different show and I just basically said, I think the backup running back spot is the most important position to get right this entire weekend because there's going to be a number of these guys who popped off. Now, I did not say that thinking that Jerick McKinnon was remotely in play. I did not say that thinking that Giovanni Bernard was going to play more snaps. Like it just came down to some of these spots to get different and to get up to some of these wide receivers with massive upside, which we are just littered with across the entire board here in the playoffs for a 4-gamer. You've got to find some ways to get different. And these running backs, there's not a ton of security. Especially a guy like Derrick Henry. We got to assume he's going to get a large workload, but is it going to be identical? We're just kind of assuming identical workload to what he's always had. Those are the kind of things that I think you've got to find ways to get away from the field. And if you can guess right on certain situations or have logic such as Cam Akers is not getting activated, if he's only partially okay here in this spot, you can make some money.
I don't think that's true. Like we've never seen a precedent for that. And the only players that have returned 6 months from major injuries are college players, and all of them have come back limited. So if anything, I think you can argue there's a sample of players not coming back full strength from these major injuries. However, at the NFL level, he's the only one that's ever done it. So I don't know.
Oh, totally. No, but I'm saying just in general, inheriting risk at the position. I'm not talking about just the Cam Akers one specifically, because I think that was a tough one for me to even get to. And then on a showdown, like fortunately, it was a showdown situation where you got to find some leverage. You got to find ways to get different. I'm more willing to embrace the risk. If it would have been the 6-gamer, there's not a chance in hell I would have rostered Cam Akers.
Here's the thing, though. Cam Akers is not that good. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
He's not. He's fine, but like he's not markedly better than Sony Michel or Darrell Henderson. Sorry, he's not.
I love Sony Michel, so you're talking to the wrong.
But
guy.
like, if you go back and look at Cam Akers, has he done anything? And granted, he was a rookie, but like to suggest that this guy is going to be elite, I don't think so at all. Quite
Coach
frank.
speak. I mean, that's Sean McVay obviously loves him.
He loved Gurley too, who is the same back. He's had the same
did.
back ever since he came there.
What's that, Matt?
He said that like a clone of Gurley every single step of the way. Like he's force fed these mediocre backs throughout his entire tenure as head coach.
Yeah, and Anthony said there was no way they were going to give him 5 carries. We didn't say that. I think you and I said we thought around 10 carries on the show. Still got it wrong.
I thought 5 was definitely in the range of outcomes, and
Sure,
probably more likely than what he saw.
But I thought we both said around like 8 to 10, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Whatever. The thing is, though, all right. It doesn't. It's just getting Akers right was more important towards getting off of Michel. Akers wasn't good. He averaged 3 yards per attempt and he had 55 rushing yards. He did have that 140-yard reception, but
he looked explosive, Lofty. He looked explosive on the field.
I guess.
Maybe to your eyes. I mean,
I was
subjective.
just kidding. Did you not hear my tone of voice?
I know. You're right. I should have picked
Matt.
up on that sarcasm. I should have picked up.
Matt,
neither of us did, Eric. So
What else do I have to do to sell my sarcasm, Matt?
I don't know what to tell you, bud.
I know. It's okay.
All right. Let's do it. Running backs, boys. Let's make it happen. And we'll do that. We'll do wide receivers, tight ends, and then top stacks at the end. Tell you where we're at here. A lot of potential stacks that could absolutely erupt this week. Kick it off with you, Matt, at the top. And disclaimer, Leonard Fournette still hasn't been activated. I don't know what's going on with him. They said he still can't run at full speed without feeling tightness in his hamstring, so that's not great. Derrick Henry is practicing, and that's cool, going at full speed, but Vrabel said he needs to see a full week of practice and watch how he cuts. I'm assuming he plays, but what type of workload does he have? And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also questionable, so that has to be known as we go into this. Ownership is going to we're going to see some of that reflected, in ownership, because we just don't know. But right now, Leonard Fournette and Derrick Henry are projected to be the 2 highest owned running backs.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, especially because their prices are down. And that's a theme we've seen throughout the playoffs is DraftKings in particular is not pricing these slates as efficiently as we've seen in the past, maybe because we have more casuals just flowing into the lobby. They want to make better rosters. I'm not sure what the strategy is, but Derrick Henry, he might be the cheapest he's been all year. I'm not sure. And Leonard Fournette, his price is still in the 5Ks, which is extremely cheap for a guy who had arguably the best running back workload down the stretch this season. Just a matter of health with both of them. But assuming they're on the field, I think you have to consider them.
What type of opportunity or what type of workload do you think we get out of Henry this week if he returns and starts, Eric?
I mean, obviously, that's just a gigantic question mark here because there's 2 ways you can look at it. One, Tennessee put him on bubble wrap here coming off the foot surgery and just decided we're going to use him in the playoffs. They put themselves in a really good position just to get into the playoffs from the get-go. Obviously, they had a really easy finishing schedule, obviously an easy finishing game there. And so they just kind of decided to put him on bubble or put him on ice here and give him a go. The other line of thinking is just that he is not going to be 100%, and you're going to see him in a spot where he's splitting snaps for the first time pretty much in the entire in the last 2 years for sure. I mean, obviously there were a lot of issues before that, but Derrick Henry had the most secure workload out of any back here that would be on this slate. And I don't think that exists here this time around. I'm probably in the camp where I think you see some Hilliard, and Hilliard is somebody that gets mixed in negative game scripts as is. I think one of the themes I'm going to have throughout this entire show, and you guys might find surprising, is I like every single dog on this slate. Like, I'm legitimately in the camp where I think every single dog is more than live to win. I think I might be somebody who bets every single money line from the dog side. And we just got
parlay them, baby.
Oh my God. Just parlay 4. That is not a chalk eater parlay in the old oddshopper.com.
No, but it is a dog days parlay, huh?
Dude, it's gonna get weird. I think I'm gonna sound like
completely free.
Next couple days, I'm gonna sound a little bit insane, but like legitimately, I'm going to bet every single dog on this slate. It's a question. Obviously, you're looking at San Francisco being the longest dog against Green Bay, and I think they could just win that game with the offensive line, with the running game there, with Deebo Samuel and Eli Mitchell. But I'm looking at Derrick Henry as a huge question mark. Be paying attention to news. That's what we have News God for. We're gonna have to be looking for any information we can possibly find about what that workload might be limited to, because I am assuming right now that he would be limited.
37-1 odds if you parlay all 4 of those.
I might.
It's actually not. First of all, I mean, parlaying them, you're not. You're gonna be a little conservative there, but I don't disagree with you that all of these dogs are like. Look, let's be real. It's not exactly a hot take, right? I mean, the Rams are 3-point dogs in Tampa. The Bills, that game opened at 3. It's down to 1.5. Titans 3.5-point favorites. Yeah, the Niners are 6-point dogs, but they are built to play the Packers well. So I'm with you there.
Yeah, Rinpack, he knows I went 6-0 last weekend. I did not bet a single one, and I'm very, very upset that I did not. But legitimately, flat out picked every game on 2 different shows, 6-0. Said San Francisco would be the only road team who won. I legitimately think all 4 road teams are very live. I don't know if I want to be the guy who's out here saying that I think all 4 road teams win, because that's you just said 37-1. But I think they're more than live. I think that's a pretty good number to get on it.
So I'm in the camp of, and I agree with you in chat, Mark, Vrabel's just trying to sell some bullshit. And there's no doubt that Derrick Henry's playing this week.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He's playing.
I think he's playing totally, but
I'll go a step further. I'll go a step further and say that every running back carry goes to Derrick Henry this week.
I'll give you odds on that.
I don't think it's that crazy.
Like, it's not that crazy, but I'll give you massive odds that he's not the only running back to get a carry.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe that's a bit hyperbole there. But if he does, I mean, if he doesn't, there's a possibility that it's like 28 carries and then 1 goes to Dante Foreman or something. I mean, I don't know. Ultimately, if he's healthy, put it this way, Matt, you mentioned this right at the top. If he's healthy and he's going to get even close to a full workload, $7,500 price point is not just cheap, it's absurd.
Yeah, we don't really have salary restrictions. I think you just lock in Henry at the price tag, not only because we expect the workload to be pretty good. And I mean, even if he has 75% of the workload he had before, what is he getting? 22 carries? The guy was handling 30 touches a game. And sure, maybe he doesn't have 30 touch upside, but who rivals him in terms of workload, even at 75%? Maybe Joe Mixon, who has occasionally ceded pass game work to players like Samaje Perine. I'm not 100% sure that somebody rivals him, even with like a 75% Derrick Henry. So he's just a guy, especially in cash formats, low risk. I'm just putting him in.
Me too. You know who else I'm going back to, Eric? We're going straight back to Devin Singletary, baby.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Got to. I tweeted this today and someone's like, I have a feeling I'll hear that in around an hour. You're right. Over his first 45 games in the NFL, he had 6 rushing touchdowns. Over his last 5, over his last 5, he has 7. He has 7 rushing touchdowns over his last 5 games because he's just continuously getting all of the work. Played 80% of snaps last week and would have played more if they weren't up by 100 points in the fourth quarter. I know that Josh Allen in the playoffs too can be a real thorn in the side of opposing running backs, but I think there's enough room for these guys to coexist again.
Yeah. Well, let's go back. Yeah, Devin Singletary. So 86% of the offensive snaps here. I think his workload, I mean, I think Matt Gajewski owes me Chipotle. You owe me Chipotle. We can go back, Matt Gajewski. I think Devin Singletary plays more snaps than Derrick Henry.
Wait, what do I owe you on a Devin Singletary or on the one from a while ago?
From the one from a while ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that I've got him on the books. So Waffy, we can maybe do a Derrick Henry. Gives up at least 4.5 carries to other running backs from Tennessee.
You can't use snap counts as a way to compare Singletary and Henry, though. That's silly.
Right. But I'm saying that you said everybody's saying that it's the most secure workload. And I would say Devin Singletary has a more secure workload than Derrick Henry, just because there's no injury tag. There's no issue that we have of like any kind of a question mark. And, the combination of Hilliard, Foreman has been something that, for DFS purposes, has been frustrating, where they kind of randomly just kind of would seed work to one another in spots. But now, obviously, Derrick Henry, I'm not questioning that he's not the number one here, but Devin Singletary specifically, 86% of snaps there against New England in a spot where they were still murdering. Like, they just never took him off the field to begin with there. So I don't see them in a closer game, which we all expect this to be, them taking him off the field whatsoever. I think he's my favorite running back on the entire board. 5,900, you're getting sub 6K for a guy getting 80+% of the work here with Josh Allen at quarterback. And in a game, again, I like the Buffalo Bills. Again, I just like all these dogs this entire week. So Devin Singletary, sign me up for that. Derrick Henry, even if he is 100% here in this spot, Cincinnati has so much offensive firepower. There are paths to this game where Cincinnati gets up early, and you could see a lot more Hilliard than what you might expect.
Okay. Matt?
I don't even know what he's trying to bet us. He's talking about snap counts. What do you want us to bet?
Matt, Devin Singletary will play a larger percentage of the offensive snaps than Derrick Henry.
Of course, though. He's a pass
I don't like that. We're talking about workload, Eric. Workload is designated in touches, not snaps.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't disagree with you on snap counts.
Well, no, Henry never plays 90% of snaps.
I know. I'm trying to think.
I don't care about snap counts.
I love Devin Singletary.
I love him too. I mean, complete in agreement with everything you said about Devin Singletary. And when they're down in games, he has a great role in the pass game. We've seen him catch or receive 5-6 targets in individual contests. It's just they've been murdering opponents down the stretch, and they haven't necessarily needed to throw to their running backs. So I'm in full agreement with you on Devin Singletary as an individual play, particularly at his price. And I think there's a lot of constructions you could build, get contrarian at running back. So maybe you use Devin Singletary and another cheap back and have expensive stacks at the cost of foregoing Henry. I think that's definitely live too.
Yeah. There's just two different types of workloads. If Henry's okay, True. You're getting potentially 30 carries. You're never getting in a game like this 30 carries from Singletary.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of it on the fly because I want more.
I know what you're saying. I look, I love Devin Singletary. We all like, that. I know you've been big on, I think all of us have that for a while now. There's no question. But Derrick Henry, man, is Singletary underpriced? Yes. Is a potentially back to his old former self, Derrick Henry, underpriced at 7.5? Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only question is maybe he isn't, right? Like that's the counterpoint. Maybe he isn't underpriced. But if you get the Derrick Henry you're looking for, he should be 10K.
Correct.
So that's the difference.
I 100% agree with that.
Hey, what are you guys doing with some of these cheaper guys? Like, what? Actually, hold on. I wanted to mention this. Eli Mitchell, right? Yep. And then can we talk a little bit about Aaron Jones just as a low-owned option? Because given his price point sandwiched in between Henry and Mixon and, all of those other guys, probably a little bit overpriced based on recent production, but he's had that game off. He finally practiced on a Tuesday. I'm curious to see if his workload increases in both the passing game and the ground game. So, Matt, you first, and then Eric. Let's hit on Mitchell and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I love Aaron Jones as a contrarian play, kind of a direct pivot off Derrick Henry. He's been hurt down the stretch this year, and he still played in a lot of games, but we know he wasn't 100%. That coincided with elevated work for A.J. Dillon. The only worry I have with Aaron Jones is they get up in this game, and if it plays to the spread, which is nearly a touchdown, I do think you see elevated A.J. Dillon, particularly in the second half. We know it's a timeshare, and there are other situations where we don't have timeshares, which I think will drive down the Aaron Jones ownership. But we've seen the upside on multiple occasions, particularly earlier in the year. We know he's a red zone weapon, and he's the preferred pass catcher. So in certain game scripts, there's definitely a ceiling for Aaron Jones. And at low ownership, I'll definitely be taking some shares of him.
How about you, Art?
I'm probably not going to be there completely. I mean, AJ Dillon right now in the boom bust tool, 29% optimal percentage with 16.3% ownership. I think, it is a spot where this game, talk about bets this entire show. I think I'm on the Odd Shopper channel right now, but I like the under of this game. San Francisco,
Odd Shopper
Green Bay
channel on YouTube. Check it out.
47 and 47.
You got to promote it a little bit.
I know you're crushing. No,
man.
I just threw it out there and then, just there you go. 47 and a half. I just think that this game in Green Bay going under, but AJ Dillon, as I said, just a massive optimal score for what you would expect. I mean, that puts him sixth, not amongst running backs, but sixth amongst all players in terms of optimal appearance rate. So I'm looking at AJ Dillon as more of the guy that I would want to be investing in, but I'm telling you right now, Eli Mitchell is going to come in even lower owned than the 16.4% we have. He is sandwiched between Devin Singletary and Leonard Fournette, both of which I expect to garner a ton of attention so long as Leonard Fournette is activated. You're going to know by Saturday before the slate starts simply because they have to activate him if he's going to play Sunday. So Leonard Fournette, be on the lookout for that news, but I just expect him and Devin Singletary to garner so much more attention. I think Eli Mitchell becomes another just point of leverage on this slate. 23.4% optimal appearance rate, 16.4% ownership. That is a ton of leverage on this 4-game slate to be getting going Eli Mitchell's way.
He's averaging 20 carries on the 11 games he's played this year.
Yep.
That's a huge number. Huge number. He just doesn't catch a lot of passes, but was targeted twice against Dallas for a robust minus 11 yards, but that's okay. That's okay. I like Eli Mitchell. I mean,
yeah.
Whenever you tell me that a guy could give you another 20, he has 27 carries in 3 of his last 6, 21 or more in like 7 straight. So that's just great volume there. Do you guys have any value, or is this a spot where we just have to wait on what goes on with Edwards-Helaire and some of these other guys like Leonard Fournette? Because those are big pieces of news we're waiting on.
Yeah, I think we definitely have to wait. Leonard Fournette would become, I think, the best individual running back play on the slate because they've already showed caution with him. If he's not fully healthy, it doesn't seem like they're going to bring him back. And they've been cautious with injuries throughout the year going back. Say what you will about Antonio Brown, but the guy spent many, many weeks on IR. Gronk was on injured reserve longer than we thought. So I think it's a spot where Fournette's back. He's probably fully healthy. They've shown that they do not trust Keyshawn Vaughn. Le'Veon Bell he's just essentially a depth piece for them in case of emergency. And Giovanni Bernard likely slides back into his role as pure pass catcher, pure third down back. I'm not even sure he plays that role with how many targets Leonard Fournette had down the stretch. I believe Leonard Fournette had 4+ targets in every game since week 3. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those were 7-8 target games.
Yeah.
Just the most ridiculous pass catching role from a back we've really seen since like Kamara had the backfield to himself or McCaffrey wasn't hurt. Like he's in that category of how much volume he was receiving, which is just crazy.
But yeah, Bernard was out. Bernard was out for the last 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Bernard was out week 14, I believe. That's when
14,
he got hurt.
15, 16, 17, 18, and then came back. So yeah, 6
Yeah,
6 weeks
and
ago.
the targets were since week 3. So
but even since week 10,
right.
9 targets for Leonard Fournette, 6 in week 11, 8 in week 12, 8 in week 13. So I don't really think it had a whole lot of an impact at all, actually.
No less than 4 since week 3.
Yeah, I think Leonard Fournette would be a smash. I'm not disagreeing that point at all. Just saying that, like, if you're trying to get different on a 4-game slate and just go a different route, a 5K Giovanni Bernard is probably as cheap as I would be looking to go, period, end of story.
Sure. If Edwards-Helaire is out, though, I will go right back to Jerick McKinnon, depending on.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, I know that people will be like, well, yeah, Darrell Williams fumbled, and he'll probably be worked back in a little bit more significantly. It could absolutely be the case. And they steamrolled Pittsburgh, but I would definitely take some shots at McKinnon. The guy was getting goal line carries. He's a quality pass catcher. He was efficient on the ground. Like they used him. It wasn't that it wasn't that they used him just to spite Darrell Williams or because Darrell Williams was injured. And I still don't think Williams was 100%, to be fair, but it was actually effective and successful. So
no, go back to Minnesota days. Jerick McKinnon was a monster. I believe, wasn't he like a top tier spark score guy too?
Yeah,
Matt Kajeski, you definitely know that.
That was the thing. Everybody, man, Jerick McKinnon, the spark score, and then it never really came to fruition.
Injuries, man. Injuries suck.
And Asiatas.
Just screw that guy.
All right.
Matt Asiata took every touchdown that McKinnon was ever going to score in Minnesota.
Yeah, and now I love the CJ Ham roll. I hope that continues because he never gets touches. Just block. Augustana College, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. What up? I love that you know that.
I also love the over on the Brady passing prop this week. It's high.
What a professional.
It's high, but I can't help but want to get to the over on a Brady prop in the postseason in a competitive game. I mean, look at all of his games where he goes under, maybe save for one or two. It's all games where they just rout their opponent. You know what I mean? Like, it just is. We got him. It's not OddsShopper doesn't have it as the greatest bet, 56% win rate, expected win rate, 5% expected ROI. So none of that's beautiful, but we still have him projected for almost 300 passing yards. He threw for 432 or something against the Rams earlier this season in a loss. They just hate running the football. And that's why I love Leonard Fournette, because they will run the football to him when they run it, and then they'll pass to him 8 times as well. So it doesn't really take away from Lenny, but yeah, I think Brady probably goes well over 300 this week because they have the lowest game script adjusted run play percentage in the league. And Eric, you know who's second? That would be the Rams.
Yeah. That entire game is just absurd. I mean, you look at the top stacks tool as well. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, like we always do, but the Rams and Tampa Bay, 20% and 13.1% respectively. Matthew Stafford chucking the ball all around the yard here. It's going to be, I definitely see both teams having to throw to kind of be successful in this spot. We saw Kyler Murray look as inept as possible. Tom Brady is not Kyler Murray. So I'm definitely, out of any of the teams on the board, this game has so many paths to being different than what you expect. I think there's more variance, but I will say the one thing that is not variant in it is both teams are going to have to chuck it. And obviously against the Tampa Bay defense, Matthew Stafford on the other side, I definitely am with you. I think both guys taking the over on their passing props, not the worst way to go.
The Rams secondary right now has some holes.
Yes.
But you know what can conceal that or mask that is a good pass rush.
Von Miller getting involved.
Yeah, man, they just beat the shit out of Kyler Murray. I mean, that one pick six was horrible. But I know Brady took some sacks against the Eagles, but usually that line holds up. He's like one of the least touched quarterbacks I've ever seen when it comes to being in the pocket.
Yeah, that offensive line was a little banged up though in the Tampa Bay game. So just kind of be on high alert. On high alert.
But the amazing thing about Brady, Matt, is he'll just get the ball out quicker and he'll just beat you that way. And then they'll get yards after the catch.
Yeah, a lot of people attribute sacks to the offensive line, but it's also a quarterback stat. Like Kyler having no pocket awareness is very much
great point.
Just as much at fault as his offensive line. Brady's not that. And I think we've seen that through a large sample in his career. And let's not forget this Rams defense just allowed 300 yards to a hurt Jimmy Garoppolo the week prior. So we can't say enough bad things about Kyler right now. That was just a horrific performance. But Brady, I think he's a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm a little scared of what he's going to do to Eric Weddle and some of the players that are out there for this Rams secondary.
Perfect segue, talking receivers. Before we do, though, shout out to our sponsor, PrizePicks. Phenomenal site, phenomenal partner, and a place that you should be checking out if you haven't done so yet. If not just for the fact that if you use the promo code Awesemo, you'll get up to $100 first match deposit bonus. There's no sharks there. There's no mass entries, optimizers, just straight daily prop-based contests. You're taking the over or under on all of these. No juice on either side of it. I mean, it really is a solid place to play and build a bankroll, but also give yourself a shot to win some legitimate money as well. Like if you use a 5-player lineup with 5 different props, you can 10x your entry. And unlike traditional props, if you were to play 4 of 5, or if you were to only hit on 4 of those 5, we'll call them legs or props in the lineup, you still double your money. You even make money back on 3 of 5, whereas you're not going to get that anywhere else. So a good place to hit big, but also to build your bankroll and have a sustainable process over there, which is what we're all looking for in a hyper competitive DFS landscape these days. This is one of the best places to do it. PrizePicks.com, or download it in the App Store, the Google Play Store, wherever you want, and use all of our free tools. We got the free player prop tool at Awesemo.com. I would use OddsShopper because it gives you all of the additional stuff. Like our projections are built in for free. expected win rate on those. All of that stuff is super important to get an edge, especially when you're playing over there at PrizePicks and you're looking to go 5 for 5, where you're doing the 4-player power play where you can 10x on a 4-player one. And did I forget to mention, Eric, that you now get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum for signing up, just signing up at prizepicks.com? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Pretty unbeatable, if you ask me.
I would say so. Yeah. They'll hit you up in 24 to 48 hours. Just use the link in the description or the one Mike Lawrence is about to put in the chat right now. $90 value, everything on the site, not just football. Everything we have, every single tool that is available, you get it for the entire month when you sign up at PrizePicks, and you get the $100 deposit bonus when you use the promo code Awesemo. I mean, honestly, what are you waiting for? Oh yeah, and all of our tools for player props included. You would think I'm lying to you, just given how good this is. In all seriousness, it really is. It's a no-brainer. PrizePicks.com. Check it out. All right. Wide receivers. Eric, Cooper Kupp, Davante Adams. We got to start there, and then we're going to work our way into this 6K range where your eyes will pop out of your head seeing how cheap some of these players are this week.
Yeah, but that's kind of what it is. They're supposed to be good offenses. This is the playoffs. These were supposed to be good teams, but the major thing for me is that you get some spots where Cooper Kupp, 8,600, 8,500 for Davante Adams. I think getting a lot of exposure to both feels like something that shouldn't be too terribly hard. You can even play Derrick Henry alongside it. We don't have any 10K, 9K guys. Cooper Kupp coming off of last week, I think might not be getting as much respect. I mean, we've got him at 28.3%. So that looks like respect on a 4-game slate at least, but I think that should even be a little bit higher with the amount of workload and just, you can't look at 1 week where Odell Beckham gets involved here and just kind of say that that's the way that it's going to be going forward. Cooper Kupp is the best wide receiver in football. That was his lowest fantasy point outcome since week 4. So Cooper Kupp, I think, bounces right back with another monster game. I referred to it earlier. Tampa Bay 3rd against the run here this season, averaging just around 92 yards a game that they're giving up. So I'm looking at this team, this Rams team, having to chuck it a lot. Cooper Kupp, no doubt, has been the number one time and time again. So for me, I like Cooper Kupp even just a little bit more than Davante Adams, but just slightly.
What about you, Matt?
I think the recent workload's concerning. He's gotten a lot of this production you mentioned the last 3 weeks via touchdowns. And I mean, they're one of the highest expectations in terms of touchdown scoring in the NFL, just because of how much they throw, how many times they make it into the red zone. But 7 targets exactly in each of the last 3 games. That is a concern. And Davante Adams on the other side, he's a guy that does not have any concerns with workload. Green Bay has a better implied team total. They're huge favorites against San Francisco. I don't think either matchup is particularly scary. So I think I'm actually on the Davante Adams side of this.
All right. I like them both.
Me too. Yeah. And I think you can play them both in certain roster constructions, probably at the expense of Derrick Henry, but you can certainly jam both these guys if you want.
That's a perfect. Okay. So Ben mentioned this yesterday. I thought it was a really interesting, a really interesting point. If you're playing Kupp and Adams in the same lineup on an abbreviated slate, you're doing things a lot differently than most people. And the reason for that being, Eric, Tyreek Hill is $6,600. Okay. Yeah. Against the Rams, who, yeah, look, do I still think Mike Evans, when you don't have Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, is viable in literally any matchup? My answer is always going to be yes, unless it's like Marshawn Lattimore. For some reason, he just owns him. But Tyreek Hill against Buffalo, 6,600. Sure, tough matchup, but no Tre'Davious White, and he's 6,600. And then like AJ Brown. What I'm saying is a lot of people are going to really live in this 6K range and pair one of those guys with Kupp and Adams, opposed to pairing Adams with Cooper Kupp.
Well, if you want to get sick with me, you're able to play Garoppolo. He's going to save you some money, 5,200 going down to him. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. But I mean, you could just literally just stack up all of these guys, hope for a Kittle reemergence or play Samuel there. It's not completely prohibitive to be able to play both Kupp and Adams the way that it might be some weeks. But as you said, yeah, that 6K range is loaded. I will say, though, I mean, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce is somebody that we just saw get massively involved there again. And I don't know. Not Hill. Yeah, exactly. Not Hill. Stephon Diggs, not involved here. I would expect one of them to have a massive bounce back week. I'm not saying that you should be just overly concerned with that situation, but Mahomes and Allen, I don't think any doubt. We never talk quarterbacks here, but those are going to be your two highest owned quarterbacks. I mean, that is near a 55 total in that absolute last game of the entire slate. And, there's really nowhere to go with those lineups with those quarterbacks. There's no pivoting with the last game on the slate. We know how much upside they have there. I mean, it's kind of a wait and see approach throughout the entire time. I don't think there's going to be a spot where Hill or what am I just getting at? I'm blanking here. Yeah, Hill or Diggs end up like low owned in any capacity, simply too cheap. They're going to be paired. They're the presumed number ones with their quarterbacks. So I think that they might even get a little bit more ownership. This is the ownership show. For me, that just, as you were saying before, Adams, such a secure workload. Cup, I think, goes back to the mean, starts getting his 10 plus targets once again here in this spot against a pass funnel. So I'm looking at probably spending up a little bit more. I know that the ownership's already there on both of them, but the lineups that are going to pair both are going to be much smaller than the lineups that have one of them individually.
Yeah, for sure. It was so strange to me that Tyreek Hill, in a game where Mahomes completed 31 passes, was only targeted 5 times. The heel seems fine. And that dude's got some springs. He's spring loaded. Did you see that backflip? Unbelievable.
Ridiculous.
I watched it like 10 times. It was awesome. But either way, he seems to be okay. Diggs, like I guess for me, Matt, I don't know if they're priced down for the matchup or if DraftKings is trying to make it more palatable when you're trying to build lineups here, which is clearly a factor, right? Like you can't price all of these guys above 8K. It's just going to be impossible. But I don't really care if it's Evans, Hill, or Diggs. I'm happy getting to any of these guys this week.
I'm happy with it too. And I think this is where you really want to look at ownership throughout the week, because I don't see there being large differences between the top of the position. But I think there is a chance that ownership coalesces around a few of these guys, particularly a Tyreek Hill and probably a Cooper Kupp. So players like Devontae Adams, we'll have to see how the week shakes out. But you even have like Debo's, Jamar Chase's, Mike Evans. These are all elite pass catching options, like bona fide number ones on their team that could lead the position in scoring on any individual week. So those are the leverage points I'm really going to be looking at right now. At this point in the week, I don't really have strong takes on who I prefer. Honestly, I like all these guys, and it's just going to come down to who's in the best game environment with the lowest ownership throughout the week. A guy like Mike Evans stands out a lot. Home favorite, good total. Secondaries depleted. Devontae Adams, for reasons we already mentioned.
Pass first offense.
For sure, pass first offense. And then you have guys like the ancillary Cincinnati receivers. Like, what do we do with T. Higgins, who's now dropped in price? If you're just playing like cash or something like that, I think you easily go up to Tyreek Hill. But for tournaments, it's a really interesting conversation on an explosive offense.
You could be right. I want to know where Higgins' ownership settles in, because if he's settling in around 20%, I still don't think he will. But if he does, I would probably just rather go to, even in tournaments, like an AJ Brown or any of these other guys. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where his ownership settles. Jamar Chase, though, I feel like he could end up being the odd man out, sandwiched in between like the Kupps and the Adams and then the Evans, Hills, and Diggs, Eric. That could be a really interesting piece once we get like good ownership later in the week.
I would call him the Eli Mitchell of this position.
Sure.
I mean, at running back, he's sandwiched. And then obviously in this spot, we're seeing Jamar Chase just sandwiched odd man out. Mike Evans, 6,800. I think he should rightfully be more popular. I think Deebo Samuel, just the amount of work and volume that he gets in a myriad of ways now just setting up, starting at running back. What planet are we on? Deebo Samuel, 7,600, I still think is interesting. Yeah. And you get
I hate
cheapers.
it though. Don't you hate that? Like you have to rely on his rushing upside and he's going to potentially get targeted 2 to 4 times.
Yes, Lofty, I do. But also I've lost so much money by not rostering Deebo Samuel this entire season that at this point in time, I'm going to just do it going forward here.
I hear you. I think
Deebo Samuel is also the
targets. We all know targets are worth more than carries.
Yes.
And Deebo Samuel's been absurdly efficient with his rushing attempts, but like so was Cordarrelle Patterson early in the year. I just wonder how long do we go before, we get to the 8 for 30 rushing production and still only 3 targets. That's what scares me. I could be way off base here though, honestly.
Yeah, he's had over 100 yards receiving in one of his last since week 9. So it's a ridiculous thing. That's 10 straight weeks where you've had to rely on rushing game. The thing is, he's getting a lot of touches, so it's annoying. It's absurd. But Jamar Chase, I mean, with this amount of upside that we've seen out of him, maybe he might be the one guy where it's just like he's just freaking good, and you just kind of roster him over the field in any spot that he's coming in under owned to these other guys. I mean, everybody at the top of this range. This is the playoffs. These are the best teams in the NFL, and they're all good. But like Jamar Chase is probably on the team that most people would say, you know, I mean, what, they're 3-point dogs against Tennessee, so maybe not, but it just feels like a team people are going to forget about. I will say the one thing that's difficult, and I mean, if he spikes 30 points, you're going to need him no matter what, but you can kind of mix and match your lineups as the slate progresses. I'm a big late swap guy. I talk about it all the time in NBA. I think in NFL on a 4-gamer, you need to be hypersensitive to playing anybody in these early games and know what those paths for those lineups are. In the event that Jamar Chase either goes off or burns you, you got to be willing to inherit and change up a lot about your beliefs. So as much as we want to take large stands on guys here on Wednesday afternoon, I'm looking at a number of these games where it's like, yes, I do like Jamar Chase, but not knowing what Jamar Chase's ownership is going to be, if he's going to end up like 20% here in this spot, I would almost just be more inclined to have none, simply because I want to mix and match my lineups to account for every known variable from Cincinnati, Tennessee. No Derrick Henry. That's kind of the other reason that I'm probably looking to short Derrick Henry this week, is just it's the first game right out of the gate. I want to be waiting on like Leonard Fournette or some of these other situations that might come in a little bit underrepresented and kind of make my lineups late swappable as possible by having later exposure.
Yeah, Eric, I never knew you were 6'2" either until you mentioned it a little while ago.
Yeah, all conference basketball. Don't mind me.
Taller than I am, man. I didn't think you were. I'm 6'1".
You mean a stand up? Is that something I need to do?
6'2", okay. 6'2".
Yeah, I can dunk.
What are you weighing in at?
Oh God, don't ask me that question right now.
Don't give me that crap, man. Don't be that.
I'm rated 200 now.
Okay. All right. So you could stand to lose 10, maybe.
I could probably stand to lose more than that. I'm training for a half marathon now because it's the only way I could get my ass off the couch.
You certainly don't look heavy.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I can only see from here down, but that looks fine.
Yeah, Jabba the Hutt on the bottom end. Just Punto the Punto Skywalker. Oh.
That's good stuff. All right.
Matt is unfazed. He didn't move.
No,
dude
Matt
didn't move. You're so unimpressed by me.
Matt, I'm going to take a guess. You're 5'10" and a half.
I'm 6 feet.
Are you?
Yeah.
See, I always thought Matt was shorter. And you weigh a buck. You gotta be, because you're kind of husky. I'm gonna go 189.
Oh, I'm like 210, 215.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
He's a brick house.
You're 215. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's muscle though too. That's the
I think
thing.
I think I'm between 210 and 215.
His favorite food is protein, tuna and hot dogs.
It's like, so true. Well, I don't know about the second one. But
I'm just saying, it's better than chips, I suppose. I don't know.
Is it? I mean, I don't know.
But I can dunk a basketball too, Eric.
Look
at you.
No, you can't.
2-on-2 Awesemo. Oh, dude, it's 2-on-2 Awesemo. Are we going to be doing like a retreat at some point in time? We got to get to
we are.
Like Arizona.
I've been trying to get something set up. You can't dunk a basketball, Matt.
We'll see, man. I'll show you.
Can you two-handed dunk? Like
I can't do it.
That's the only way I can do it, Laffy, because my hands
hang on the right, because you can't palm a ball.
Yeah, I can't do it one hand. I can only do it two-handed.
Shit.
Can you still do it? I mean, you're younger than me, right?
I'm 28.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can still dunk. I cannot.
I want you to shotgun 2 4 Locos and dunk a basketball when we get together.
Okay,
and I'll film it.
Yeah? Stone Cold Steve Austin, just go to it.
I will do it. Yeah.
You know, if we do get together, we're gonna have to do like vlogs, just any absurd stuff that happens, so people can follow along and have some fun with us. I think it'd be a good time.
Dude, I have no kids, no responsibilities. I know you guys do. So when it works, we just got to do it. Tell me when and I'm there.
All right. I love it. I'm all about it. Any other cheap or low owned wide receiver? I'll throw a couple out there and just see where you guys are at on yours. And then we'll hit tight ends and top stacks and head out. But I do think that if you're looking at a Julio, what if Julio really was just banged up and now he's had a little bit of time and he's back to where he was? He actually looked really good in week 18. I think if Julio comes in at low single digit ownership, that's a spot that I'm willing to at least entertain. 9 targets was a season high. I like that. Got into the end zone, looked okay. And then if Alan Lazard is really 4%, that's probably something I will have some interest in. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Alan Lazard, Iowa State's finest. Let's go. I'm absolutely all aboard that train. You know, I'm so conflicted with this guy. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm an Iowa State fan, but Alan Lazard, indisputably kind of becoming the number 2 there. I will say, I believe Marquez Valdez-Scantling was out for week 16. Okay, so just the 1 week here specifically, but he's got the injury designation with his back. He's been a limited participant in practice, so be on the lookout for that. I think his involvement period is probably something that might take a little bit of the shine off. But yeah, if you're looking for a way to get different, any amount of Aaron Rodgers where you're skipping Adams, which I don't recommend doing, but I mean, it's just Alan Lazard, 4,400. There's not a lot of guys here in this range. I mean, Van Jefferson garnering a little bit more attention, 4,200. But I doubt people who are just clicking on box scores, looking at targets, are going to go nuts going towards a Van Jefferson as opposed to an Alan Lazard. So I'm probably with you there. For me, this is the first time I've always been shying away from some of these number 2s from the Kansas City side, just because they haven't existed. It could be Robinson, it could be any of these guys, but on a 4-game slate, I'm definitely going to be looking at quite a bit of Byron Pringle at 4,200. I mean, it's hard in that game environment, last game of the entire slate, not to have some interest there. 8 and 7 targets now the last 2 weeks. He's definitely kind of become the certified number 2 there. McCole Hardman, you know, they're doing a lot of the gadget plays for him still, returning punts to whatever else, but and there's ways that he can get some value. But Byron Pringle, I think can we just call him the wide receiver 2 there in Kansas City now? Because he sure looks like it.
Probably, yeah. I just hate how Mahomes spread the ball out so damn much last game, but Pringle was involved. He looks good, man. So I get it. I'm with you. Matt, what about you for some low-owned receivers?
Yeah, I like Pringle. I think the spread is good for him, bad for the guys at the top like Tyreek and Kelsey, but Tyreek is so cheap that it's not really that much of a worry. He's not 8K. Outside of that, I think some of the cheaper options do make sense. I have a little more skepticism on Lazard than you guys. The Packers did designate Randall Cobb to return. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll play in this game, but just something to watch. And it's not that Randall Cobb necessarily plays Alan Lazard's position, but when they have a full and healthy receiving core with Adams, Cobb, Lazard, MVS, they all rotate on and off the field. So even if he takes a couple snaps away from Lazard here and there, that does affect him. And down at the bottom, I think
but
you could
real quick, Matt, for me, it was just the fact that if Lazard really is 4% on a 4-game slate, and that's really all it is. It's not that I feel good about it, but
yeah, I agree with you. I think you play Lazard.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Gabe Davis, I think, makes a lot of sense. Cole Beasley was almost entirely phased out of the offense. And if that continues to be the case, I think Emmanuel Sanders and Gabe Davis can both make some sense there. Outside of that, there's not too much I like. Maybe you could take a shot on like a Brandon Ayuk, who continues to see pretty good targets with Debo playing more running back than ever. Outside of that, I don't think there's really too much need. There's a situation, I guess, to monitor with Tampa Bay, seeing who ends up being the wide receiver 2. Maybe you'll get some value, but that's not very clear at this point in the week.
We had a question, Gabe Davis or Beasley. Honestly, it's Gabe Davis at this point. He's playing a lot. Beasley played 30% of snaps in that game.
We've been saying that all season long. Beasley just isn't going to, when Dawson Knox is healthy as well. I mean, Dawson Knox is out there for a hot second. We saw the snap share come back up for a second, but like Cole Beasley is not a priority on this team anymore.
He ran 8 routes last game. It's crazy, right? And Gabe Davis, listen, Gabe Davis is a legitimate red zone threat. He's a red zone target on this team. Josh Allen really likes him in the red zone and really in the end zone. So yeah, I think it's clearly Gabe Davis, if you're asking me. Matt, would you agree?
Yeah, I think 100%. And I think it makes sense. Gabe Davis, he's a lot more dynamic of a playmaker than Beasley. Beasley, you know, you're getting a 5-yard catch, maybe around the sticks and nothing more. Gabe Davis can at least do things down the field that Beasley can't.
Mike, I just realized that we haven't updated the Hall of Fame, so you can scrap it for today.
Aw.
Yeah, you can scrap for today. We'll get it updated for later today. No big deal. You guys, I mean, look, the flagship deeper dive live before lock shows. You'll be on one of those tonight, Eric.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be doing the deeper dive actually with Adam tonight. So
I think it's Ryan now. Man. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it went from Alex to you to Ryan. Adam literally just DM'd me something a little while ago. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, cool.
Either way, you're going to be there one or the other.
I'm going to be doing something.
One or the other, you'll be there. And you'll do the Hall of Fame segment. So we'll be in good hands. All right. Hey, tight ends. One more time, hit that thumbs up too if you haven't done so yet. Look, we got football this week, Saturday and Sunday for what? The second to last time, right? Second to last time that we'll have Saturday and Sunday football. We'll have 2 games next week, and then we'll wrap it all up. So it's coming to an end abruptly. Let's make the best of it. All right. So tight ends, Matt, Kelsey, Gronk, Kittle, Knox led the team in routes run last week too. Found the end zone twice. Needed him big time on that Saturday slate. Even CJ Awesemo has played really well at times. It's actually a pretty stacked position for a 4-game slate.
Yeah, it is. I think the player with the most consistent opportunity right now is actually Gronk. Kelsey's still competing with Tyreek Hill, and they're spreading the ball around a lot more to the ancillary options, at least more in previous years. And it's the opposite in Tampa Bay because of the injuries and the whatever you want to call the Antonio Brown situation. Their target share is condensed around Gronk and around Mike Evans. And it's not all that long ago. There's third and second most recent game where Gronk went over 100 yards in both double-digit targets. So I do think the volume is there for Gronk. And as far as a price-adjusted play, his volume's just more consistent than Kelsey and George Kittle right now. But I'm surprised to see George Kittle coming in with 21% ownership. I know his price is down, but based on the volatility of his role of late, I thought we would be able to get a very low-owned George Kittle. So at this point in the week, with Gronk only a couple more percentage points higher than Kittle, I think I'm just going to find the 500 and play Gronk.
I don't think you're wrong. When you lose an Antonio Brown and a Chris Godwin, and you've got a Rob Gronkowski and Mike Evans, don't we have to be looking at these guys as premier options with maybe the greatest passer to ever do it, who still might be the greatest passer, still doing it on a team that hates to run the football? And Gronk is a legitimate red zone guy. I like him again this week. I'm worried about Kittle, Eric. I mean, I was sweating an over 11.5 receiving yards prop on Kittle the other day. Why am I sweating? It hit, fortunately, but jeez. Why should I be sweating over 11.5 yards on George Kittle? It's scary.
Yeah, part of it is, and I think I said this coming into the season, and obviously he had some massive, ridiculous weeks, but I mean, I was basically off of him. He's a really good pass blocker. Not pass blocker, sorry, a run blocker. He's just, it's almost like an issue that he's as good on a football field at doing everything as what he is. Going back to, shout out Iowa, even though I hate you. Going back to his college days, I mean, he's always been on these run first teams, and this is no different. It's a run first football team. You also have guys like Juwan Jennings, who, 2 weeks ago came to fruition and, was a third down stalwart there for Jimmy Garoppolo in this Cowboys game. I just look at stuff like this. He just doesn't have the absolute, we have to go to him type of act. Now, that being said, there's 6-point dogs. If you're going to have a game where you would expect them to have to throw it a little bit more, this would be it. George Kittle's now down to 5,300, whereas before you were paying 7,500 for just about nothing here in previous weeks. I think the discount is probably the main reason you're seeing him at 21%, but I'm with you. I think Gronk is definitely the guy that I want to get to the most at 5,800. If he's going to be the same price there as Travis Kelce, I'll let everybody else kind of go that direction. And if I need to try to find ways to get different in other positions in that game for some of my lineups, because I'm sure I'm going to have a crazy amount of exposure to Kansas City, Buffalo, just like everyone else, I can make some pivots and account for a Gronk dud. I can't do anything about Kelce in that last game in the event that he goes for a dud.
For sure. And Matt, it's weird. He played 97% of snaps. He blocked a lot. He still led the team in routes run. It's just, he only had a couple targets, which is unfortunate. Do you like any value? Awesemo, Ferkser, DeGuara, anybody down there? Maybe even a Higbee that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think that I love Kittle. I just wish he was lower owned. If for what you said about the routes, if he was coming in at 10%, I'd be slamming Kittle, but he's the third most owned tight end on the slate. For value, it's kind of scarce. I think Higbee is the one guy you can look to with some security. He plays a pretty strong role in the pass game, but he is a little touchdown dependent. You are somewhat making up that difference in price, however. Awesemo had the best game of his career, maybe, in their last contest. So I think you're probably buying high on Awesemo. DeGuara is in a 3-way timeshare. Like, you're going to see Mercedes Lewis and Daphne. I don't know who the Packers are going to play at tight end, but they don't just use DeGuara. And then outside of that, like, Ferkser's a pass catcher, but he's really limited in snaps. Brait maybe sees an elevated role because they're so injured at receiver. But even then, these are all touchdown dependent guys. And I think the one that's most likely to secure the touchdown is still Higbee.
Wrap up the tight end position for us, Eric.
Yeah, I have a weird one, but I mean, Jeff Swaim is a guy who's at least been on the field a lot. He's the one guy underneath 3K that I think I would actually be willing to roster. I mean, Cameron Brate, I suppose, but just playing no snaps whatsoever. He's been around 36% on like the high end on any of these weeks in recent weeks. But this guy in Swaim has been on the field 90%, 71% of the time there against Houston. And obviously they ended up having to play some of those guys a little bit more than they might have wanted to secure that 1 seed. But just on the field over 65% of the time, I think you can take that shot. And basically whenever I go down on like a 3 or a 4 game slate to the bottom end of a tight end position, it's basically hoping that there's no ceiling performance out of Kelsey, Gronk, and Kittle. Obviously there's that mid-range to actually be worried about too. We saw Uzoma, we saw Dawson Knox go for ceiling performances as well. But like, you're basically getting yourself into more of the Cup, Adams, Henry kind of tier. Being able to pay up for some of those guys just gives you a different roster construction. And at least Swaim is on the field, so there's an outside chance. Obviously, there's no kind of a verified passing game role, but somebody who could sneak himself into the end zone has done it a couple times this season, and sub 3K is sub 3K.
Okay. Well, that's all the positions, but we still got to hit these stacks before we head out for the day. Then I'm going to get a haircut. That's what we got.
That's why you needed to roll out of here early, was the haircut?
I got one on Friday, Laffy.
Nice.
Thank God.
Very
You're
nice.
very disorderly. It's been
You
very
told me
jarring.
I needed a haircut on Monday.
I did. Look at this thing.
Matt,
This is
I
not-
thought you just shaved your own head.
You know how hard it is to shave your own head?
I don't know. I know a ton of people that do it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
It's just one of those things too, where someone can do it easier and better. And I'm just
Right.
willing to pay the money for it.
Did you go to a barber?
Yes. I have the best barber. It took me a long time to find one that doesn't talk to me, and it's amazing.
Really? See, I like, I
Oh,
look
this
for a
guy's
barber
awesome.
that-
He asked me what I want, how I'm doing. He does it. We don't exchange any more words than that. And then I'm out of there. He gets
That's
a great
so
tip.
awkward, man. That is so uncomfortable and awkward.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. I had a bad barber experience last week, and I've had the same barber forever. It has nothing to do with the haircut because I think he did a great job. But I told him, he always asked me about fantasy advice. We always sit down, and he was asking about his basketball team. He goes, I really need a win playing my buddy. Dayron Sharp was like a lock for me that day. And I was like, you need to go pick up this guy. Al Horford's out of the rotation, needed to drop him. Back-to-back days, Dayron Sharp goes for a dud, plays like 25 minutes, does nothing. And Al Horford ends up mega chalk because Robert Williams has a child. I felt like shit. So anyway, if you're watching my guy Enzo, I apologize.
Just get a new barber, man. Can't
Ben
shave-
Raza told me this advice.
Ghost him, ghost
Yeah.
my barber because I'm feeling so guilty about being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Eric, some of the
Whatever.
best advice that Ben Raza ever gave me is to tell anybody you won't have more meaningful relationships with. If they ask what you do, just tell them you're an accountant.
There you go.
It's the Ben
That's
Raza
sharp.
special.
There you go. Oh yeah, Ben Rasa coming back after like bad advice to a barber or something. I can't imagine the awkwardness of that conversation. Enzo, if
It
you
would
need
be a
some-
lot of this. Well,
Yeah.
Ben
adjusting
told
the
me to
glasses.
Ben told me to tell my girlfriend when I first met her that I was an accountant.
Just lie right from the get-go. Ben
That's what-
encourages lying.
All right, we gotta
That's
go.
what
I got
Ben
a
said.
haircut. Stop talking.
Okay. Yeah, we got it.
And Enzo, if you're looking for some tools for free instead of Eric Lindquist's advice, our NBA ownership rankings are totally free today. PGA rankings and NHL player rankings, all of them completely free over at awesemo.com. But if you want to check out everything else we have, NFL Strategy Show, all one word, all caps, get you 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Every tool for every sport, all of them created by Awesemo himself, built by Awesemo, used by Awesemo, I should say. All right, top stacks, as we do, we go around the horn here, give our favorite one, and try and be a little different, or try and just really reaffirm what we're looking at in terms of the percentages. I'll go with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. I like this game to be Eric's right. It could go in many different ways, but as of now, I'm approaching it as these teams want to throw the football. The Rams will struggle to run the football. True, insane pass funnel defense for the Bucs. So give me this Rams stack. It's not that expensive outside of Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford's not overpriced. You know, Beckham and Jefferson haven't been great, but I think you can go Stafford, Kupp, Higbee pretty easily. Higbee's got decent touchdown equity. And just to tack on to that, over passing yards over at Odd Shopper, we have him projected at 295.4. The prop is 279.5. That's FanDuel's the best line because we aggregate everything and just very simply for free give you the best bet so you don't have to find it. And 56% win percentage. So just Rams passing game all around, Eric. That's what I got today.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I have the fortune and honor, not just of doing this Wednesday show with Matt Kajewski, but every Sunday throughout the entire NFL season, we've been able to do live before lock. And we absolutely crushed just getting off of some of the Keyshawn Vaughn, getting onto a lot of Giovanni Bernard as we talked through it on that show. The problem is we played all of the Dallas, San Francisco quarterbacks, and that did not go well. I'm not making the mistake of fading Patrick Mahomes or trying to be even anywhere lower than the field. If you're going to say that Patrick Mahomes is going to only be, you know, the 20% rostered right now, looking at his 24% top stack potential, we know Hill, we know Kelsey, and now I think Byron Pringle, a certifiable option there in that offense. I think Pringle's existence as a wide receiver too that I feel we can lean on opens up the ability to double stack that in a way I don't think we did before. You usually had to go along with everybody else and play either play both of Kelsey and Hill in order to really spike that upside. I think Pringle's existence makes me much more inclined to want to fire up a bunch of KC, positive leverage to be had. That shouldn't be the case with Kansas City ever on any 4-game slate.
I love it. Matt, put a bow on it. Take us out, fella.
Love the other side of that game with Buffalo. I like Josh Allen because there's so many ways you can actually stack him. You can do skinny stacks because Josh Allen's extremely mobile. And the stacks you're spending money on are less expensive than some of the other premier options. That offense doesn't have a Cooper Kupp or a Travis Kelce. Your most expensive option is Stephon Diggs. And then when you get down to the wide receivers 2 and 3, you're talking about Gabe Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, and even Knox at the tight end. Those are really cheap stacks. I think they have similar upside to the ones you guys mentioned, and perhaps they allow you to jam in a Derrick Henry or someone else.
All right. Matt Kajewski at Matt_Kajewski. Eric at Eric Lindquist, LINDQUIST. That's pretty standard, though. Most people should know how to spell that. Kajewski's a little bit different because it's not pronounced how it sounds. Neither is mine. Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D. You guys are the best. Thanks for hanging out with us all season. We'll run this back a couple more times before we board up the windows for the year. But until then, come back tomorrow. It's the matchup show. We'll have On the Contrary. We'll have a culmination of 4.5 hours all the way up to lock. Both of those days, probably. I don't know. We got Saturday, Sunday. Who knows at this point? But just stick with us and have a good rest of the week. We'll see you guys back here soon. Peace.